where twice a week I bring a little chaos to Star Trek by reviewing a random Star Trek episode. Um, and I do these episodes twice a week, like I mentioned, on Wednesday at 8 p.m. and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Alright, so today's episode is The Next Generation, Season 4, Episode 8, Future Imperfect. So it starts off on 10 forward, and we see Riker playing the trombone, and he's not doing too well, and it's his birthday. So now we know now we know Riker's birthday, I guess. And well, I guess it initially starts off with a captain's log and whatnot, but immediately goes to the interior of the ship where it's Riker's birthday. And the ship is being probed from a planet below, which is supposedly uninhabited. And Picard wonders if maybe, because they're near the Romulan neutral zone, Picard wonders if maybe there's like a rumored Romulan outpost below, and maybe that's where the probe is coming from. So, but there's interference, and they basically have to go down to the planet. So it's Riker, Geordi, and Worf, and they beam down to this planet, and it's of course, this is Planet Hell. That's what the cast would call it. But it's like a little cave, like system, like a little cave thing. And so they beam down there. There's like about the gases in the area, and all of a sudden the planet starts getting gassed, and they start choking and stuff, and they call for emergency beam out. And that's okay. So they beam up Geordi and Worf, and then Riker gets left behind. And then he wakes up in the sick bay, and Dr. Crusher's there, and she's like, "Oh, good, you're awake." And Dr. Crusher has like weird hairdo, and he looks in the mirror, and his hair is like gray now, or getting gray, somewhat gray. And of course, they have a different comm badge. It's still the Delta, but then it has like little lines or something, and that's the teaser. So then used, and Crusher tells him that he has some virus, and that 16 years have passed, and they're referring to him as the captain. And he's like, "No, I'm not the captain. I'm the commander." And she's like, "No, it's been 16 years. You have this virus that like causes your memory to regress back to when you were on that planet." And so he's like, "Well, I guess," and she's trying to tell him like, you need to familiarize yourself with, people and things, like, so that you can get your memory back. And she's telling him he needs to go to his quarters, and that's where he would be more comfortable. Then that would help him get his memory back, so he could be around objects and stuff. to get his memory back, and he's like, no, I want to go to the bridge. I'm more comfortable at the bridge. And so they're so he insists on going to the bridge, and so she goes with him to kind of help him, and he's asking questions like what happened to Geordi and Worf, and that Geordi seems to be immune to it, and it doesn't affect the Klingons. And he's like, Klingons? And she says, well, a lot has changed around here in 16 years. So then they get on the turbo lift, and they go to the bridge, or he says bridge, but the computer doesn't recognize his voice, and then he says it again, and then it works, and Crusher says something like, there's been some weird things going on. So he gets on the bridge and meets up with Geordi, and now Geordi has like regular eyes, human eyes. He doesn't have that. A Romulan warbird is uncloaking, and Riker calls for like a red alert and shields up, and Data informs him, that that's not necessary. We were expecting them, and so the warbird uncloaks, and Admiral Picard is in the captain's chair with Deanna. So Will's, he's like weirded out by all this, and basically they beam onto the Enterprise and explain to him that in the observation lounge they explained to him that that a Romulan warbird had crossed into Federation space, and it's kind of like yesterday's Enterprise. It's like he like rescued them, and that kind of caused peace between the Romulans and the Federation, and that they're basically on their way to sign a treaty and with the Romulans, and Will is necessary for that treaty. So at first, Riker's like, I'm not fit for duty, I don't remember everything. And he's like, you can, Picard is like, I'll brief you. That's fine. You don't have to worry about it. And then Deanna like takes him to his quarters, and that's where he walks into his quarters, and there's a kid there playing trombone, and the kid goes, "Hey, Dad," and that's where we find out, or at least Riker thinks that he has a kid. So him and his kid are like talking, and then he turns to Deanna. He's like, talking with her, and he's like, what happened to, who's the mother? And I guess if you were watching this for the first time, you would think it would be Deanna, because they've had a relationship in the past and all this stuff. But she says, well, she died like 2 years ago, and they call her Minu, or Minnie, something like that. And so then he's talking to his son and kind of teaching him how to play trombone and all this stuff, and he wants to pull up his service record, and the computer once again doesn't recognize him, and he's kind of like questioning it at this point, because what it is Geordi's supposed to be running a diagnostic, but the diagnostic is taking longer than normal. So the kid comes up to the computer and asks for this service record and brings it up. Then they go to the transporter room, and it's Deanna, Picard, and Riker, and they're beaming aboard the ambassador. And the ambassador beams aboard, and it's Tomalak. So, and as we've seen in the past, Tomalak is not a good dude. And Riker mentions that. There was a time where he threatened to display the hull of the Enterprise on Romulus. But they greet each other, and he's like, he's not easy with this. He's not aside, and he's like, I want to talk to you guys privately. And they tell him, that things have changed, and that Tomalak is a different person now, and he he just doesn't like the situation. And so then at that time, Dr. Crusher calls him to sick bay because his son has been injured. So he goes to sick bay, and his son is got a broken leg or something, or a broken arm, I think. And he's like, how did you injure yourself? And the kid's like, oh, I was playing Parisi squares and fell. And he's kind of like mad, and he's like, you shouldn't be doing that at your age. And then Crusher pulls him to the side, and he's like, how old were you when you started playing? And he kind of smiles, and he's like, well, I guess I was a little bit younger than his age. And I guess the kid's like 12 or something. And so he talks to the kid, and basically has like a father-son chit chat, and he's saying how he's saying how he does, like he this is as far as he's concerned, like he's just now finding out that he's a father. So, and the kid's like understanding. He's like, oh, it's okay, we'll work it out together. And then they talk about like this fishing program, and he's like, as soon as these negotiations are done, I'm going to take you on this fishing program. And then they go back to Riker's quarters, and there's further talk about how the mom liked the fishing, and how she fell in the river or something, and he also fell in, and the kid is just he's excited to talk about it. And then Riker wants to pull up like pictures, home pictures or home videos or whatever you want to call them. And he asked the computer to bring him up, and but the computer still doesn't work. It doesn't work. So the kid asked the computer to bring him up, and all of a sudden, in comes because he wants to see, what his wife looked like or whatever, and it's Minuet. And for those that remember, Minuet is from the Binar episode, where they steal the Enterprise and distract Picard and Riker on the holodeck, and they create Minuet. who is like this really attractive woman that they're talking with, that Riker's talking with. And so now that's got him suspicious. Okay, he knows that this isn't, there's something wrong. This isn't real. So he goes to the bridge, talks to, he's like, Jordy, basically saying your diagnostic is taking too long. It shouldn't take this long. Normally it would be done in 3 hours. And then he asks Worf. Worf has this scar on his face, and he asks Worf, where'd you get that scar? What battle was it? And then he starts asking Data, how fast can we get to wherever we're going? And then at warp 1, at warp 3, whatever. And Data can't calculate it. And he says a contraction, which Data can't do. He can't use contractions. Only Lore can. And Tomalak's there, and Tomalak says, okay, enough with this. And it turns out that it was all like this holographic program, and Tomalak is now they're on this Romulan outpost, and Tomalak's like interrogating him, and he wants to know the location of Outpost 23, which is like very strategic for the Federation, near the neutral zone, and so he's still, there's still something weird about it, because he has all this information about the Enterprise and has all this information about him, and was able to create this elaborate situation, but yet they can't figure out where this outpost is, and so he gets frustrated, and he escorts him to like a holding cell where the boy is, and he explains to him that that's not his real son. And so Riker's like talking to him, and he's like, what's your name? And the boy says, my name is Ethan. My family were brought here, some sort of, I don't know, scientific mission, or I don't remember. And the Romulans like captured them, and he doesn't know what they want with him. And Riker's like, have you ever tried to escape? And he's like, yeah, there's a hideout spot, where they only found me because I came out to look for food. And then Tomalak comes back, and the force field is down, and then the boy like takes off running, and Riker does one of them moves, the palm punch thing that you see a lot in Star Trek, and then takes off running with the boy, and they go and hide in this little tunnel thing. And the Romulans come by, and they're scanning, and the boys, Ethan, is like, their scanners don't work around here because of these rocks. And so then they're coming, they walk through this little tunnel system where he's at, and they're still looking for them, and the Romulans are looking for them. And he talks about trying to get to the shuttle bay, and then the boy messes up and says Ambassador Tomalak, and that's when Riker realizes that it's not the Romulans that are created this situation, it's him. And then uh, and then so then it turns out that it's they've been on this planet this whole time, the cave from the beginning, and they uh, the boy explains that his people had been killed and his mother had brought him to this planet that set up all these little sensor things and holographic imagers or whatever, and you know, to hide him there. But then his mom had been killed and he'd been on this planet ever since, and basically it can read his mind and his desires, and he can, you know, create whatever images he wants. And so he and Riker's like, well, I didn't desire to come down here, I didn't want to be part of this game. You know, and you know, at that time we go back to the Enterprise, and they say that they can sense Riker down there. So so Picard, you know, calls him on the comm badge, and he's like, yes, I'm down here still, you know. And then that's when the boy turns into what essentially what we would call a gray, like a gray alien, but the eyes are kind of bigger and they're kind of flashy and stuff, but he basically looks like a gray. And they, you know, Riker goes to beam up, and then that's pretty much the episode. I mean, there's, you know, not much else to it to say, but when I was watching this, and I've seen this episode a bunch of times, it's a good episode, I like it, but this time watching it, because in season 4 of Discovery, there's like this I forget the race of alien, but it's Suru's race, or Suru, or whatever you, the Kelpian guy. I think it's his race, but there's like this retarded alien that in season 4 blew up all the dilithium in the whole fucking alpha quadrant because he had a conniption fit or something. That was really, really dumb. Really, really dumb. But it reminded me of that because it's the same situation. His parents had hit him on this planet or something with this holographic room that could create whatever he wanted. So they can't even, I mean, they rip off their own stuff. I mean, they can't even write anything original. Or if they do, it's completely stupid. I'm talking about Discovery, not TNG. But yeah, that I didn't realize that, and I probably hadn't seen this episode since watching that. So that's probably why I put 2 and 2 together and it clicked. And I just thought, how stupid is that? But so then they beam up, and so then I'm thinking, okay, where does this alien kid go? Does he go to another starbase? Does he go to an orphanage? adoption agency. I mean, I guess, you know. I mean, there's a lot of situations like that where they're like, oh, you can come with us, and then you never see them again. So, not much else to say. It's a above average, I'd say 7.5 out of 10. It's There's another Riker centered episode where there's false things going on, uh, which is by far one of my favorite TNG episodes. I'm trying to get up to 30 minutes, but the plot is pretty straightforward. I mean, it's another. There's not a B plot, so I mean it's pretty straightforward. I don't think I left much of anything out. It's just tells a simple, almost Twilight Zone-ish story. Simple sci-fi story, nothing too complicated, but enjoyable. Okay, so, and I guess that gets us to of the show where I pick the next, or actually fate picks the next random episode of Star Trek for Sunday's review. And I just want people to know that yes, I am planning to go see Superman, and I will probably do a review. Don't know what day that will be, but as soon as I get a chance. So here we go with the next episode. And if nobody's out there in the chat, that's fine. If you catch this episode, in the future, welcome. If you've never seen this particular episode of TNG, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I hope you enjoyed the trickery and the reveal and all that. So anyway, as you can see, it's still on TNG Future Imperfect. So we're gonna do the randomize. We're gonna hit the randomizer button and see what we end up with. I can't read that. Oh, Enterprise, episode 121, Detained. This is the one with Dean Stockwell from Quantum Leap. I actually watched this not too long ago, and actually Admiral Teague, who, if you don't know, go check him out. But yeah, he talked about Detained not too long ago, and had some good observations that I'd never seen. So I'm gonna see. We'll see what observations I come up with. I have no freaking clue. It doesn't look like anybody's out in the chat, so there's nobody to really chat with right now. So, and I made it past the 30-minute mark. Yay! So thanks once again for anybody lurking out there. Anybody that catches this in the future. This is the Red Hour, episode 11. Thanks for coming out. I'll see you guys on Sunday at 8